After a night of heavy drinking, John Wilson got a girl pregnant. By the time I found out, she was already 6 months along. He said if we kept the baby, we could go back to how things were before. I shook my head and demanded, "Who would you choose? Me or this child?" That day, he remained silent for a long time, unable to give me an answer. Yet after I disappeared, he regretted it. Having been married to John for 5 years, I never imagined our story would end this way. Outside the hospital, I watched John carefully help a young, beautiful girl down the steps. Standing a short distance away, I locked eyes with him just as his expression softened with tenderness. His gaze faltered, and he stiffly looked away. The pregnant girl beside him glanced over at me too, her eyes instantly welling with tears. After safely settling her into the car and giving her a few instructions, John finally walked toward me. His steps were calm and composed, the earlier panic of being caught completely gone. He took my ice-cold hands, cupping them tightly in his palms. "Why are you at the hospital? Are you feeling unwell?" His voice was gentle as he reached to touch my forehead. I pulled back. "Who is she?" John didn't answer. Instead, he pulled me into an embrace. "Someone unimportant. I'll explain everything when we get home." "Okay." His soothing tone finally broke me, and tears fell. I lifted my chin defiantly, needing an answer. If he said it, I'd believe him. John sighed softly, then gently wiped the tears from the corner of my eye. "The child is mine." My tears froze on my cheeks. I forgot how to breathe. My lips stung where I'd bitten them, drawing blood. I pushed out of his arms, stepping back. Only then did anger flicker across John's face. He pulled me close again, his eyes pained. "Ivy, you can hate me, but don't punish yourself." I didn't understand why he'd done this yet still pretended to love me. As we stood in tense silence, the girl from the car stepped out. "Go back inside," John snapped, his voice icy. She flinched but held her ground, her eyes determined. "Ms. Parker, it's not what you think between Mr. Wilson and me. This baby, it was an accident." She offered a bitter smile. "If I could, I'd want this less than anyone." My vision blurred. Though I couldn't see John's expression clearly, I knew him well enough to sense his earlier coldness had vanished. "Enough. Stop talking." Jealousy and resentment surged through me, and I screamed hysterically. The girl stumbled, nearly falling, but John caught her in his arms. I stared numbly. Then a sudden impulse took over. I lunged toward them. Just as I was about to shove her swollen belly, a powerful force shoved me back. I landed hard on the ground, staring at my scraped palms with a hollow laugh. John stared at his own outstretched hand in disbelief, frozen. That day, John left the 6 months pregnant girl behind and took me home. But I know that there's no future for him and me. When I got home, John Wilson gave me an explanation. I sat on the bed, motionless for a long time, and he stood on the balcony of my room, smoking all night. I know he was trying to make me feel sorry for him in a self-abusive way. He always knows my weak points. As dawn was breaking, John turned around and entered the room. He came to me and said, "Are you hungry? What would you like to eat? I'll cook it for you." I stopped him with my hoarse voice. "John Wilson, let's have a talk." John paused in his steps and didn't turn back for a long time. I know he understands my personality. I really mind this kind of thing. I mind it very much. Even though he was drunk that day and had an accidental contact with that girl, I couldn't forgive him. So, John kept this matter a secret. But no one expected that the strange girl he only met once was pregnant. Due to her special physical condition, she couldn't have an abortion. That's how we ended up in this situation. John still left. He was afraid to face what I was going to say next. I know he loves me. If he didn't, we wouldn't have been in a long-term relationship. If he didn't, he wouldn't have spoiled me into a girl who can act coquettishly and cry easily. For the next week, John didn't come home. But he still asked the housekeeper in detail every day how I was doing. The housekeeper advised me, "Ma'am, you and Sir are the most loving couple I've ever seen. Just talk things out and it'll be okay. Sir has lost a lot of weight recently. The housekeeper has worked in my family for many years. She's never seen me and John have a single argument. Even Mrs. Wilson, who was not satisfied with me in the early years, gradually accepted me as the daughter-in-law of the Wilson family because John and I were living a happy life." The phone rang. It was John calling. "Sister-in-law, brother John is drunk. Can you come and pick him up? Leave him alone." After hanging up the phone, the anger in my heart didn't subside but increased. I always thought of John's back when he left. It seemed a bit hunched. I still couldn't bear to leave him there alone. After some struggle, I picked up the car keys and strode out. The door of the private room was ajar. I stood outside and didn't go in. John was really drunk. He sprawled out on the sofa in a very unseemly way. In front of him, there stood a pregnant girl. John's friend looked a bit embarrassed. "Miss Emily." Sister-in-law refused to come, and brother John refused to leave. "So I had to call you." The girl smiled gently and tried to support John's arm. Suddenly, he pushed her away. A few exclamations woke John up from his drunken state. He looked at the woman in front of him and gave a smile that was uglier than crying. "Emily, it's all because of you that Ivy doesn't want me anymore." John kept repeating this sentence and then started looking for alcohol everywhere. Everyone tried to stop him, but he grabbed a liquor bottle, desperately gulping down mouthfuls. Emily Taylor suddenly snatched the bottle from the man's hand and smashed it violently on the floor. The private room instantly fell silent. Even John, who had been throwing a drunken fit moments earlier, stared at her dumbfounded. "John, your loud outburst could frighten our baby. Get up. I'm tired, take me home." John Wilson, who practically held sway over the entire city, had never been ordered around like this by anyone except me. Everyone held their breath. Certain had explode in anger. Yet in that tense silence, John said nothing. He slowly stood, picked up his jacket, and wordlessly followed Emily out. Huddled in the corner, I watched the man and woman walk ahead. A laugh escaped me, though it carried a bitter edge. I trailed their taxi to an upscale apartment complex. From my car, I witnessed John step out and accompany the girl upstairs. A light flickered on midway up the towering building. I sat there all night, but John never emerged. At 7 in the morning, he reappeared carrying breakfast and went back inside, staring at that achingly familiar silhouette. I quietly drove away. I later called John Wilson back but didn't mention divorce. My gaze briefly met his noticeably thinner frame before darting away. "I didn't pick you up last night. Where did you stay?" John's fingers trembled slightly. After a pause, he murmured, "I stayed at the office." An indescribable feeling settled in my chest, less sourness than profound disappointment. When had John learned to lie to me? The man who once vowed lifelong honesty had changed. I didn't confront him. It no longer mattered. "How far along is she?" John hesitated, as if pained by my question. "Almost 7 months," he finally whispered. Then he dropped to one knee before me, burying his face in my lap. His tears soaked through my skirt. "Ivy, I was wrong. Please don't leave me." In all my memories, John had never cried. Now, his weeping was violent, raw. My heart ached watching him, yet I knew I couldn't soften. Arrange for me to meet the girl. We met at Emily Taylor's apartment. John waited outside. Emily gently stroked her belly, her eyes brimming with anticipation for the child. That night, with all the lights off, I was terrified. Yet the next morning, seeing Mr. Wilson beside me for a moment, I felt relief. Emily smiled faintly. She lifted her eyes to me, her expression still gentle, still lovely. "Miss Parker, since Mr. Wilson's child is almost here, won't you let us be together?" With John absent, the girl seemed like a completely different person. Actually, I wasn't too surprised. Because on the night I went to find John Wilson, Emily Taylor had glanced at me from behind the door. I knew she had seen me that day. She slowly stood up and pushed open the tightly closed door. Inside was a cozy children's room. Everything in here was personally selected by John Wilson. And he decorated the room himself. He does have expectations for this child. I really wanted to maintain my last bit of composure in front of Emily, who was flaunting John's paternal love at me. But I still got provoked by her. So, John did have some expectations for this child. He wasn't indifferent. It felt like all the strength drained from my body. I braced myself against the dining table with one hand and knocked over a water glass. The crisp cracking sound hit my heart, shattering into countless fractures. John heard the noise and saw me swaying while Emily lay on the floor crying out in pain. That day, I will never forget that John's first choice was no longer me. Emily flashed me a triumphant smile, thinking she had one, as he brushed past me. John hesitated for just an instant. In the end, he stepped over me, picked up Emily, and took her to the hospital. When he left, John didn't look at me. I stood there for a long time before slowly accepting that he had abandoned me. I followed them to the hospital, and when I arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson had also come. So, they had known all along, hiding it only from me. Seeing me approach, Mrs. Wilson slapped me across the face. "If anything happens to my grandson, you'll see how I settle accounts with you." John immediately shielded me, pulling me entirely behind him. Seeing this, Mrs. Wilson grew even angrier. "John, it's fine if you usually protect her, but now she's trying to harm your son." John laughed, his voice tinged with suppressed defiance. "So what? If it's gone, it's gone." If they hadn't kept this child behind his back, how could Ivy have been so heartbroken and upset? No one knew that when he saw Emily fall, his first reaction was actually joy. For this unexpected turn, he felt some regret. The doctor came out of the room and said the baby was safe. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson hurried in to fuss over Emily. But Emily kept looking toward John standing at the doorway, her expression pitiful. She dared to scheme against me, so how could I let her have her way? I showed him my swollen left cheek to make him feel for me and said to John, "The first don't want to stay here anymore." John was led away by me. As I left, I looked back at Emily lying in the hospital bed and returned the same smile to her. At least for now. John was still on my side, even though I didn't want this favor anymore. In the days when John thought I had accepted this child, I had already started preparing to leave. I packed up my things and prepared the divorce papers, just waiting for the day to depart. That's right. I would leave on the day Emily gave birth. Didn't she want me to make way for their family of 3? Then I would grant her that wish. Lately, I've had a faint discomfort in my lower abdomen. That day, I went to the hospital for a checkup. But I never expected to run into them. I registered again and had the examination. The moment I got the results, I laughed until tears came out. John Wilson and I had been trying for a child for 5 years without success. Now, this child seems to have come at the wrong time. Holding the pregnancy confirmation in my hand, I walked dazedly through the hospital, unsure how to treat this little life inside me. I knew I should have an abortion, but I couldn't bear to. This decision was even harder than giving up on John, until I looked up and saw John accompanying Emily Taylor just after her prenatal checkup. These days, neither of us had mentioned Emily again. He thought my silence meant I acquiesced to this situation. "John, our baby is very healthy. I'm so happy." John's voice betrayed no emotion, but the lift of his eyebrows revealed his joy. You're taking good care of him." They were discussing the baby, not noticing that I had stopped in front of them. The moment John saw me, he immediately let go of Emily's hand and distanced himself from her. After a silent pause, I spoke first. "What a coincidence. Well, you're busy. I'll head off now." John frantically grabbed me, refusing to let me go. Ivy, listen to me explain. I calmly released him. Without a trace of anger. I'm not angry. This child is your responsibility. I understand. As soon as I finished speaking, Emily's eyes suddenly lit up. Ivy, do you really agree to keep this child? Since we had a falling out last time. I didn't want to give her any pleasantries. Emily's baby is due in a few days. What use is my disagreement? The woman became anxious, her voice trembling with tears. I was forced. Saying this now was meaningless. Without letting John follow, I turned and went back to the doctor. Just now, someone had already made the decision for me. On the day Emily gave birth, John was called away at 4 a.m. Before leaving, he whispered in my ear, Ivy, once this child is born, can we go back to how we were before? He knew I was awake. He also knew that a strange child stood between us, and things weren't the same as before. I closed my eyes tightly, giving no response. But just as he was about to leave the room, I suddenly called out to him. Persistently, I asked, John, between me and this child, who do you choose? Seeing his stunned and troubled expression, I shook my head and urged him to leave. As I lay back down, John said softly, wait for me to come back. I'll resolve everything. But I don't need your resolution. I'll handle it myself. After he left, I placed a divorce agreement and a USB drive on the bedside table. Without any farewell, I left this home that I had once cherished deeply. With 2 days left before my flight, I returned to my hometown. Since marrying John, I had never gone back. The once short bungalow had been built into a 2-story house, standing out among the other buildings. Someone with sharp eyes spotted me and pointed, shouting, the eldest daughter of the Parker family who married into a wealthy nest is back. In less than a minute, I was surrounded by people. My parents came out of the house, and seeing my empty hands, their smiles froze. They welcomed me inside with forced smiles, and as soon as the door closed, my mother pinched my waist hard. You ungrateful girl, coming back without even buying us anything. It's such a waste raising you. I'm divorced. John Wilson won't be giving you any more money. The whole family was on high alert. Their faces changed. Look, these parents and siblings who live off selling their daughter are my family. When they found out I left with nothing, not a penny to my name, they heartlessly kicked me out. I stood outside the locked gate, not feeling sad. In front of this family, I should thank John Wilson, for it was he who shielded me from the storm, giving me 5 years of peace. But now that we're apart, I don't want them to disturb his new life. Having dealt with this trouble, I boarded the plane without any attachment, alone, leaving the city where I'd lived for many years. Emily Taylor gave birth to an 8-pound boy. John had a son. And at that moment, I was lost in deep memories on the plane, recalling when I first got together with John. That year, my family told me that Grandpa was sick and needed medicine. They had no money, and if I didn't give it, they wouldn't treat Grandpa. At that time, I transferred all the money I had saved to them, not even leaving enough for a meal. Before the next month's paycheck, I ate instant noodles for a whole month. Later, John found out. He, born with a silver spoon, had never experienced a day without money. His eyes reddened. He asked me in a hoarse voice, "Why didn't you tell me?" Without giving me a chance to answer, he held me tightly, his tone full of concern for me. "Don't forget, you have me." That day, I met the first person in over 20 years whom I could rely on. In the 5 years of marriage, John never broke a promise. After Grandpa passed away, he kept all those messy family members away from me. Was John good to me? My answer is, very good. At least before this thing with Emily Taylor. He was a very good husband. But in life, love alone isn't enough to last a lifetime. Even if I didn't leave this time, that child would still be a thorn in my heart. If it stays there long enough, it will fester. I want our beautiful memories to stay right here. To stay in this moment when we still love each other. After the plane landed, I looked up at the azure sky. From then on, he and I. The sky is high. The sea is vast. Each to our own peace. The moment the child was born, John had a flash of joy. It was the child he had been expecting. His bloodline. His son. So, in his happiness, he condescendingly stayed with Emily in the hospital for one night. That night, he didn't go home. He wanted to arrange everything for Emily and her child. Then cut ties with them. He and Ivy Parker could go back to being as loving as before. But Ivy didn't wait for him. She disappeared alone. When the aunt came to the hospital looking for him, John was carefully holding his child. When he heard that Ivy had left, John didn't get up to look for her. He just closed his eyes deeply. Because he knew that this time, Ivy wouldn't forgive him. John didn't sign the divorce agreement on the bedside table. He watched the video on the USB drive, putting these two things together. They were both mocking his foolish actions back then. At the end of the video, there was a video that Ivy Parker recorded for him. After John Wilson listened to it, he began to wail. He knew he was wrong. Terribly wrong. It turned out that Ivy knew everything. John. After being married for so many years, it's my fault that I haven't given birth to a child for the Wilson family. I know you really want a child of your own. No matter what reason you had for keeping this child back then. It doesn't matter anymore. Let's part on good terms. Ivy saw through his calculations. He wanted to keep this child. For a self-centered person like him, he only cared about those who were important to him. What did others matter? As long as he didn't want to. This child wouldn't have a chance to be born. It was his acquiescence that allowed John's parents to let Emily Taylor's belly grow. It was his heartfelt joy that gave Emily a chance to hurt the person he loved. John Wilson wanted to have the best of both worlds. But in the end, he lost the person he cherished the most. John Wilson. The child is already born. What are you up to now? John's mother looked at him angrily. Who was about to give away her newly born grandson. Extremely angry. Without this child, Ivy will forgive me. John had made up his mind. He didn't want this child for a single second. He had already found a family to give the child to. He would give them more money so that the child wouldn't be treated badly. Seeing that John was set on his way, John's mother pleaded with tears in her eyes. John, this is your own son. Are you really willing to give him up? Mom knows you're sad because Ivy divorced you. But no matter what you do, she won't come back. For me, no one is more important than Ivy. Mom. I regret it. John's heart trembled. He swallowed the bitterness and forcefully took away the 1-month-old baby. This incident caused quite a stir in their circle and was talked about for a long time. Some people said John was too heartless, while others said he was too infatuated. Anyway, the Wilson family was completely regarded as a joke. After half a year, John found out where Ivy was. When he wanted to come to see her, he was stopped by his cousin, Sophia Clark. His cousin was Iva's senior in college, and Ivy had relied on her care during her time abroad. Brother, don't come. Ivy said that if you come, she'll leave. We all saw how much you liked Ivy back then. Why did you act so stupid in this matter? Facing his cousin's question, John couldn't say a word. Time wouldn't give him a chance to start over. After a long time, John asked in a low voice. How is she? She's fine. She can eat and sleep well and has gained a lot of weight. John forced a bitter smile, showing his pointed chin. That's good. Take good care of her. After hanging up the phone, John's joy of finding her slowly spread. He laughed out loud in his dimly lit house. It was so good to find her. On the other side, Sophia put down the phone irritably and swore a few times. Ivy looked at the still angry woman amusingly and persuaded her. I don't care anymore. Why are you still angry? It's not the same. You and my brother were so in love back then. How did it come to this? People who knew that Ivy and John had separated all felt sorry for them. But when the relationship was over, they couldn't go on. Sophia was Ivy's best friend. And only she could ask Ivy some questions. She looked at Ivy's belly. Ivy, what are you going to do about this child? Don't let my brother know. I stroked the child who belonged only to me. Tenderness in my eyes and brows. I didn't abort that child back then. At the last moment. I regretted it. I no longer had family. No John Wilson. And I didn't want to be alone for the rest of my life. He has no father. Only a mother. A month later, I gave birth to a girl. I had the person I cherished most in this world. I worked while raising my daughter. And life was happy and fulfilling. Back then, I invested in Sophia Clark's company with my technical skills. And now the company is developing well. I have enough ability to give my daughter a wealthy life. Unknowingly, my daughter turned 5. John, under Sophia's threat, didn't dare to come find me. But every month he would ask Sophia about my situation. Sophia asked me, should she tell? I nodded. Except for my daughter's existence. There was nothing that couldn't be said. Because of the company's business transfer, Sophia's company was moving back to the country. This time, she was going back to get married. Naturally, I would go back with her to attend her wedding. Because my daughter developed late. She was smaller than children her age. And didn't look anything like John at all. Moreover, he already had a son. As for my daughter, it probably didn't matter. On the day we returned to the country, Sophia had urgent work. So she had her boyfriend bring us back first. The plane landed. And John was standing outside to pick me up. Because Sophia often came over to my house for dinner. Her boyfriend was very familiar with us. My daughter was holding his hand. Which made John misunderstand. John felt waves of pain in his chest. As if something was stuck in his throat. Making it hard for him to breathe. Seeing us approach, he used all his strength to say a few words. You're back. I softly hummed in agreement. Not saying much more. After being washed away by time, those romantic feelings had long faded. Today, when I first saw John, the first knew I had moved on from the past. After leaving the airport, John offered to give me a ride. Sophia's boyfriend knew that John might have misunderstood our relationship. And didn't explain. Instead, he smiled and refused him. No trouble. We have a car. After getting in the car, John was still standing there. Watching the direction the car left. My daughter asked me, Mommy, who is that strange uncle? He looks like he's about to cry. Do grown-ups cry too? I stroked my daughter's soft hair. Not looking back. Uncle is Mommy's friend. The wind might have blown into his eyes. Soon after, Sophia called me, saying that John had asked about my daughter. As we had agreed, I said that the daughter was my adopted child. John believed it. Sophia came back a few days after us. And as soon as she returned, she was busy preparing for the wedding. Many company matters were handed over to me. After taking my daughter out to play for a few days, I started being busy with work every day. I don't know where John found out my address. But these days his car is often parked downstairs at my house. It stays there all night. I pretend not to notice and don't pay attention. A person almost a stranger has little effect on me now. On Sophia Clark's wedding day, I took my daughter to attend and met John Wilson and his parents. Sophia Clark is John Wilson's cousin. And many people in their circle know me. Seeing me with a child, those people whispered. John intentionally blocked those scrutinizing gazes for me, while also blocking Mrs. Wilson's resentful look at me. Those who didn't get along with Mrs. Wilson naturally wouldn't let this opportunity pass. Someone asked me, Ivy, is this child not the Wilson family's? Mrs. Wilson now has grandchildren. That's a great blessing. I didn't care how they looked at me or talked about me, but I couldn't stand them talking about my daughter. I smiled at that woman who, though a year younger than Mrs. Wilson, was full of wrinkles. You are the one truly blessed. With a house full of descendants. The woman's husband's 7th son had just been recognized from outside and was only 10 years old. The woman awkwardly shut her mouth. After this incident, I was worried that my daughter might be recognized by them. So throughout the event, I deliberately shielded my daughter from the Wilson family. I planned to leave early with my daughter after the ceremony. But unexpectedly, I turned around and lost sight of her. When I looked again, my daughter had run up to Mrs. Wilson and lifted her little chin. "Grandma, you shouldn't always glare at my mom." Mrs. Wilson was stunned for a while, her face showing disbelief. She trembled and reached out to touch my daughter's face. "Tell Grandma. How old are you?" My daughter held out 4 fingers and said as I taught her, "I am 4 years old this year." Mrs. Wilson's eyes instantly dimmed, and she muttered, "Too similar. Really too similar." This little girl looked exactly like her when she was young. My heart pounded wildly. Mrs. Wilson's expression was clearly abnormal, and I was afraid she might notice something. I hurried to my daughter's side to take her away. At that moment, a little boy about 5 or 6 years old suddenly shouted, "Liar! Didn't you just tell me you were 5? My daughter looked up at me, her face turning red, somewhat embarrassed. "Mom, I forgot just now." I closed my eyes, having to accept reality. Fortunately, John has a son, and Mr. and Mrs. Wilson have a grandson. No matter who it is, they cannot take my daughter away from me. Meanwhile, Sophia was pulled aside to ask for the truth, and she looked at me. I nodded to her. After the wedding, my daughter and I followed Mr. and Mrs. Wilson back to the Wilson family's old residence. In the car, Mrs. Wilson held my daughter tightly, overjoyed. Mr. Wilson also showed a rare smile. John, who came in last, was the happiest. His eyes never left my daughter. After my daughter was taken out to play by the nanny, I spoke up. "She is mine alone. I cannot hand her over to you." Seeing my firm attitude, Mrs. Wilson was also assertive. "She is the granddaughter of the Wilson family. I cannot let you take her away. Name your price." Since there was no need to continue the discussion, I picked up my bag and left. But John stopped me at the door. "You've raised our daughter well. What my mother says doesn't count." At that moment, I felt John was extremely excited. He was several times gentler than usual, but regardless, his words made me feel a bit better towards him. "You already have a son, and you already have a grandson. Why do you still insist on taking my daughter from me?" But after I said this, John and his parents' faces all changed. John Wilson's expression turned so detached it was as if he were discussing something entirely unrelated to him. His parents, however, wore looks of distinct disapproval. I almost doubted my own eyes after all. This was the grandson they had yearned for. That evening, Sophia Clark gave me the answer. It turned out that after I left, John had given away the child Emily Taylor gave birth to. When the boy was 4, John's parents found him and brought him to the Wilson family home. But John adamantly refused to acknowledge the child. An unacknowledged son. He still hadn't been given the Wilson surname, because he hadn't been raised by them, and because many of his habits grated on John's parents' nerves. And because of him, their son John stopped returning to the Wilson family estate. Gradually, they distanced themselves from the child too. Now, the boy isolates himself in his room every day, refusing to see anyone. Deeply withdrawn. "What about Emily Taylor? Doesn't she care?" I asked. Sophia lowered her voice on the phone, as if afraid someone might overhear. "I heard my brother was tricked by that woman, Emily. She put something in his drink," according to Sophia. After seeing the video I gave him, John became suspicious. It was footage ID recorded at Emily's place that day. Knowing what Emily was like, how could I have gone unprepared? Soon enough, he found evidence. John showed no mercy and had Emily sent to prison. Hearing this, I felt a pang of sorrow. I hadn't expected it to end like this. Only Emily's child remained pitiable. Since learning we shared a daughter, John had been intent on reconciliation. His parents fully supported it. This way, they could see their granddaughter constantly. John resurrected the relentless pursuit tactics Head used when first courting me. Employing every trick in the book, I avoided him daily. Seeing my distress, Sophia suggested I consider returning home. I was tempted, but when I discussed it with my daughter, though she agreed, I sensed her hesitation. I stayed silent, waiting for her true feelings. Mom, I like it here. Can we please not go back? She finally asked. Do you like the uncle who's always downstairs at our building? My daughter was bright and sensible. She'd never once asked about her father. Is he my dad? Her eyes sparkled. Yes, I replied. He is your father. To keep her happy. Staying was fine. As for John's persistent advances, I could handle that. I arranged to meet John alone. He refused 3 times before showing up. We knew each other too well. If I hadn't sought him out privately, there might have been room for reconciliation. Now, he understood it was truly over. Even for our child's sake, you won't reconsider? He asked in a subdued voice, which only angered me further. John Wilson, I am a person first, and a mother second. I would do anything for my daughter, but only willingly. Over the years, I rarely dwelled on my past with John, his history with Emily. Never once. But today, to make him let go, I tore open that old scar, exposing the raw, untouched pain beneath. I stirred the coffee in my hand and asked in a very calm voice, John Wilson, I remember that outside. You never drink alcohol offered by strangers. I looked up at him. But that day, why did you drink the cup Emily Taylor gave you? John's hand suddenly tightened. His lips trembled involuntarily a few times. After a long while, John closed his eyes in despair. That night, you had a crush on Emily. This was the night he explained to me the fact I least wanted to face. There were women outside who wanted to hit on him, but they never succeeded, even if it was just a momentary attraction. It existed, so he gave Emily the opportunity. John actually knew the reason himself. He just didn't want to admit it. When leaving, John cried in front of me again, but I will never cry because of him again.